What up, what up? Going live as I'm working through doing this product photography for product. I do some product photography here and there, but this one, as you can see, hopefully you can see it on the screen here. But as you can see, I'm trying to shoot this package here. So what this basically is, so it's a package of makeup remover pads. So it's 3 of them. So I've kind of already started here. So the thing about this packaging, so number one, just to start off, because I've already been working on this before I went live. So when all 3 of them was in the package was too bulky. So I wanted to take out 2 of them so that way I can flatten the package a little bit more. So as you can see, it doesn't look open. So just a little tip, if you have to take something out of a package, just flip it over, cut a little hole in the back of the package so you can take the contents out, but that way the package still looks intact. So that's what we have going on right now. So basically, I'm just trying to work through some of the reflections that I'm getting. So something that's giving me a hard time at the moment, hopefully you can hear me when I'm over there, but something that's giving me a hard time at the moment is there's some silver underneath here. So first of all, let me get back in with the reflector because this works out really well. So I'm just using an umbrella with a Yongnuo speed light, super easy setup, because this is basically just a product shot for a website. So it really isn't anything fancy. It's just a typical shot, but I just wanted to do it very clean. So yeah, I just have an umbrella with a Yongnuo YM560. And I got my 5B4 just boomed out over the product, as you can see in the shot. So obviously using an umbrella is going to be a little bit more harsh. I went with an umbrella just because it was easy. Typically, if I'm doing product photography, I don't use an umbrella because I don't have as much control, and I have more of a involved setup, but I didn't want to do that. So first thing you want to do is soften this light. So basically I'm just going to use this reflector, and I basically just like to bring it in and get that shot. So again, the problem that we're going to have is this silver underneath in the package is very reflective. So I like the light that I'm getting on the package itself. So without the reflector, you can see that it's a little harsh. Again, this packaging is challenging because it's not flat and it's very reflective. So trying to get rid of all of these highlights is not the easiest thing. So right now I have 1 pad in the package, and then I have the package taped down with just some painter's tape. So I use this reflector here to just try to get rid of some of those highlights. So again, that's looking good, but we've got in the packaging, there's some silver here that's bright. So what I'm going to try to do, and I don't know if it's going to work, so we're going to see if it works together here. What I'm going to try to do is put some of this. It's just these are just like foam sheets. So I'm going to put some of this in the package to get rid of this silver and see if that helps me get rid of that glare right there. So let's see how that pans out. So just to show, just got, tape with just painter's tape, and then I just have a little incision right there on the bottom to where I can get the pad in there. So I'll pull that out, and then we'll cut this and see if that will help. I think that should help, but we'll see. to try to make it pretty much the whole size of the package just to keep it consistent. Let's cut it. Yes, I need it to be a little bit wider than what it is. Yeah, so let's these are the things that you have to do to make it work, okay? So basically, what I'm doing here, what up, Bree? So basically what I'm doing is I'm just putting that in just to, and I don't know how well you can see it in the live, but there's just some silver and that's very reflective. And so that's what's giving me these glares. So I'm basically just trying to eliminate that without drawing too much attention to putting something in there. So now it leaves me with that, and that should help. But let's see. I don't know for certain because I'm trying this out for the first time now. So then this is the pad. So anytime I do product photography stuff, I'm always trying to pay attention to the detail. So I want to get that label to be nice and straight, because I mean, it could be any old kind of way. So I want to try to have that attention. So I want to get that and try to get that pad in there even. And the thing about it is, you know, there's only one pad in there. There's 3 that comes in it, but you would never know looking at it whether, you know, there was only 1 pad in there or 3. It's kind of irrelevant. So let's put it back in. Definitely is a little challenging working with the packaging because, like I said, it is very reflective, and then when there's something in there, it's not a flat, even surface. So I'm definitely getting some highlights that I'm having to work through. So let's see how that looks. Oh, of course my camera switched and think that it's in vertical mode now. I typically don't do overhead. I usually don't do overhead for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's hard to do the lighting the way that it needs to be, because if you're shooting overhead, it's difficult to light overhead as well and not have your camera cast a shadow. So I typically don't shoot this way. And then number two, you can get the reflection of the camera on your product. Now, what I typically would do if that would happen, and I might have to do that with this because I threw them all away when I moved. But what I typically would do, if I was doing an overhead like this and I was getting the camera set up reflecting on the product, what I would do is get a whiteboard, just like a poster board that you get from a craft store, and I would cut a hole just big enough for the lens to go through. And so I would essentially have that whiteboard like this. So then that way, obviously, I can get the shot, but then I get all white. I get rid of that reflection. So that's typically what I would do, which is what I might have to do with this. But I'm trying to work through that without doing that. And now let's see if I can get this thing on camera to not think that it's vertical. and battery's about to die on it, so let's swap out the batteries. And then let's get it to not think that finesse it just right. Also a reason why I typically don't shoot overhead, because you have more issues than what it's worth sometimes. Perfecto. Okay. No, Bree, if I were to, normally I would have it up, but I wanted to make it hard for myself. If I were to stand it up, I'd have to change my entire setup, which I don't particularly want to do that. Okay, so, but even still, even if I sat it up, it's just a very reflective surface. So when you have a white packaging that's plastic, that is about as reflective as it gets when it comes to reflective packaging. White plastic is definitely terrible. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of a hot spot on that side. So let's see if we can get rid of that. Normally when I'm not going live, I just have my camera right over, or my laptop right over there, so it's a lot easier. Now, of course, you know, obviously there's a lot of other stuff. This would all be handled in Photoshop. So I'm really just focusing on just getting the packaging. So right now I just want to get a good plate shot of the packaging, and then eventually I'll add in the pads on this side and then get some detail shots. I'm just trying to work with the packaging. So also the part that's challenging with this packaging as well is that, you know, there's a lot of creases in it, and, you know, it's plastic. So there's nothing I could do about that. I mean, if I was trying to be super detailed in particular, I could get a heat gun and I could heat the plastic up a little bit and I can get rid of these creases. I'm not going to go that far because this doesn't need to have that level of detail. But as you can see though, I got rid of that highlight in that silver. Now there's still a little bit right here on these edges, which I could handle that in post. I could only get that cellophane or that foam so far over to the edge. So this here is fine. I can address that in post. That's not a huge problem. And I do kind of like the highlights here on the side, so that's not bad. What up, M. Jones? What up, Chris? I'm just doing some product stuff here, so I thought I would go live. Let me at least try to straighten it out just a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna straighten it in post, but so let's some fresh tape on there because it's not staying down. Try a whiteboard on the side like a V flat for what issue, M. Jones? Yeah, Chris, that's his, yeah, I can see it as I'm looking at the phone, as I'm looking at the stream. It's just because you're seeing the image from my laptop, so yeah, I mean, the color is definitely going to be a little off on the live. It is not that blue in person, but even if it was, I would just, well, I would fix that in camera, but it could be fixed in post as well. Painter's tape sucks. I was going to use gaffer tape, but gaffer tape isn't cheap. So I actually usually use a putty of some sort, but I don't have any. I ran out of the one that I normally use, and the one that I have right now is too tacky, and it would be a mess getting it off with my little whiteboard here. So I don't want to use what I have, but typically I would use a putty of some sort and not painter's tape. But you know, you gotta use whatever you got. So M. Jones, the hot spot is essentially being caused by the flash, and a V flap wouldn't necessarily fix that. So the issue with this, and I mean, you can spend a lot of time fixing it, or you know, I could, man, I'm going to end up having to use gaffer tape because this painter's tape is not staying down the way I need it to stay down. You can spend a lot of time doing a composite and fixing each area individually. I don't think I'm going to do that because I don't think this product needs that level of detail. But the problem with this particular product is, since there's something in it, it's not flat. So you basically have a curved surface. So anytime you have a curved surface and you're hitting it with light, you're going to have hot spots and it's going to reflect light differently. Like if this was completely flat, then you would have even light on it. But since it's not completely flat and it's curved, it's going to bounce that light differently. So you're going to have spots of the product that are bouncing light differently than other spots of the product. So with it being super reflective, and because I'm side lighting it and I'm not lighting it evenly. So again, normally when I do this, I wouldn't do a flat lay like this essentially. I would normally use clips to clip it up, so then that way I can light it from the front evenly. So why I chose to do it this way, I don't know, because I just wanted to challenge myself, I guess, or irritate myself, I don't know. So it's a little bit trickier this way because I can't light it evenly from the top, because since the camera's here, if I had my light here, the camera would cast a shadow on the product, which wouldn't necessarily be terrible since this is a smaller product. I don't know, it might not be too bad, but with it like this and with me side lighting it, you're definitely going to have different spots that are going to reflect the light differently, but we'll see what we can do here. Just because, you know, I like to problem solve. So now what I will say, M. Jones, is that there definitely isn't as much light getting on the opposite side of the product, and bouncing some light in there wouldn't be a bad idea. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Because since I'm hitting this here, I'm just getting some fall off on that side. So I'm not necessarily looking for it to be perfect necessarily. Yep, so basically, I just kind of just try different stuff and take shots just to see what I'm getting. Oh, stupid camera. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah, that's not bad though. So this here it's an issue. I could in Photoshop just take this piece here and kind of move it over here, but I'm gonna try to alleviate that. So yeah, you know, you kind of have the creases, and this is where, if it was a product that needed to have perfection, I would do a serious composite. So I would basically shoot this empty and then put the pad in to get the pad. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to do that because I don't necessarily need. So what I'm going to focus on this shot, I'm going to just focus on the pad. So that way I get just this. So let me get the shot first. Straighten it because you got a little crooked there. So let's do that. Oh. So basically what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to focus on just this sliver right here. And I'm going to get that looking good. And then once I have that looking good, I'm going to remove the pad and then flatten this out completely and then get a shot of that. And then in post, I will combine the two. Now, you probably can't see it on the live, but I can see the whole outline of the pad right here. Now, of course, in the shot, you won't see that. But again, it isn't going to matter because you're not going to look at it in that kind of level of detail. You wouldn't know if you didn't know. So it's relevant. For all you would know, this wasn't opaque enough to be able to see the outline. So that'll be irrelevant. So let's just work on getting a nice exposure on just that. My flash might be a little too high. I might need to tone that down. Yeah. So right now I'm at quarter power. I'm gonna drop that down a little bit. I'm gonna drop it down and stop. See what that looks like. You know what? Actually, let's. I'm gonna drop the camera because I'm losing a lot of. Well, no, it's fine. I'll leave it. So what I want to do, since the way that I have it positioned right now, so I'm kind of getting a little hot spot. Let me zoom in. So I'm kind of getting this little hot spot here, and this is basically just from my reflector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the product so that way I can get more of an even exposure. Now I think I prefer this matte look here. I think I would like a little bit more detail in it though. So I mean, I could probably, yeah, we're gonna try to get a little bit more detail in that in camera though, because I don't want it to. Well, that side with the tag, there really isn't a whole lot of texture on that side like there is on the other side, but we'll see what we can do. So let's do test there, see if I got that lined up. Okay, so now as you can see, like in rotating that, I was able to get this part right here, and I don't have that hotspot anymore. So let's see what's going on in here. Yeah, Bree, so the only reason that I'm using flash is because I'm going live. And so I don't, the camera settings, let me backtrack. Yeah, I have used continuous light. Well, it's getting darker now, so it wouldn't have been a problem now. When I started doing this and when I was supposed to go live, it was a lot brighter in here. So I didn't want the ambient light. I wanted to have complete control of the light. So when I first started doing this, it was so bright in here that the ambient was coming into the scene. And if I would have knocked it down enough to get rid of the ambient, then my constant light wouldn't be enough. I will be able to do it now because it's a lot darker now, but I'm already using this, so I'll keep using it. And honestly, this is taking me more time because I'm going live. If I was not live, I would have my laptop right here. I would literally take a shot. I mean, I would be adjusting this in seconds at a time. But since I'm live, I gotta come over here, I'm taking the picture, then I gotta walk all the way over there to look at it because I got the computer set up so y'all can see what I'm shooting. So it's just taking me a lot more time walking back and forth the way that I am. So if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be taking this long. But I figured I would at least just try to show y'all my process. What up, Josh? I'm just shooting just this makeup remover pad thing. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's I think that looks good. I like the light on there. If I bring the highlight up a little bit, get a little bit of detail. So, you know, in post, I can fix this where this foam doesn't go all the way over. You know, I can fix that in post. This little wrinkle right here, I can fix that in post. Now, of course, you typically would want to try to, you know, do as much as you can in camera. I'm not the kind of person to rely on post because sometimes I'm like, I'm going to fix it in post and then it becomes a nightmare. So I do normally try to fix stuff on location, but for this, I'm not going to worry about it too much because again, this isn't something that needs perfection. So I'm going to kick the flash up and let's see what that looks like. If I take that flash up a stop, so that's not bad. So I'm shooting at, just in case anyone is curious, I don't know if you can see it on the live, probably not because it's too small. And let me see if I could bring this closer so you could, yeah, because you really can't see it. So let me see if I can bring that in tighter. So I'm shooting at 200th of a second, f5.6, ISO 100. So I'm shooting at 5.6 just because I want to make sure that I get everything nice and sharp. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's some cleanup that I would do for, you know, some of these hot spots, of course. And then I would, in post, I'll probably bring up the white point just a little bit and kind of clean up some things. So of course, I mean, you know, you can only do what you can do on camera, and then you can kind of clean up some things. So that's good. And of course, the background that'll be taken care of. I'll stretch that out, so not an issue there. But I think I'm happy with this part right here. So this is all that I really care about in this shot, is just this center part right here. I'm just trying to make sure that I like the way that looks. Yeah, definitely it's getting dark. See if I can get some more light going on in here. Yeah, because I feel like you guys can't really see the detail of that too much. But yeah, there's a little spot right here that I'm not sure if that's the pad itself or if that is just shadow from the packaging not being straight. So I'm gonna try to get rid of that. Yeah, not sure, but I definitely know I can fix that in post. So that's not a huge deal. I'm not exactly sure what's causing. I know you guys can't see it in the live because it's dark, and I don't know if I can make that any brighter using my phone. Okay, so I'm just gonna take just a few more shots just to make sure that I have something that I like of this. And what I normally do is just kind of play around with where I put my screen, just kind of get some different stuff, and it gives me different shots just in case if I need to just fix a particular piece, then I have different shots of that in different spots to be able to fix anything that I may need to fix. Yeah, so that little hot spot is bothering me, and that's just because it's up right there, so I'm going to try to take that down just so that way it won't be as much of a problem. Man, my camera just doesn't know which orientation it wants to be in. Perfect. So we got rid of that hot spot there. So that looks good. I like this little part right here. So that's good. This turned on me just a little bit, but not a huge deal. What up, T-Mid? Yep, no, that, yeah, that definitely works. Okay, so now that I'm good with that, what I'm going to do now is take the pad out of the product. I want to leave the foam in there just so that way that part isn't super reflective. And so now with the pad out of there, I can get this to lay flat-ish. It's not all the way flat because it's pretty thick plastic. I'm going to try to get it to lay as flat as it can. And there's some creases in there that is just not really going to come out, but that's okay. Okay, so now that we have that out of there, we can just kind of focus on the package. And so, again, because this is white and it's plastic, it's pretty reflective. So we don't have to worry about this part because I'm going to Photoshop in the center part from the shot that I just took. So all I'm looking at is to get a good exposure on this white part here and have detail and have no blown highlights. So already that looks pretty good. You know, something like this, that little spot, I could take care of that in post. Because, I mean, you can spend a lot of time trying to get it perfect. Now, again, if it was a shot where I needed it to be 100% no issues, I would do a big composite and I would focus on areas and get each area. Like I said, I would bring out a heat gun and heat this plastic up and get rid of any creases and wrinkles in it. Definitely am not going to do that for this. But let me just take a shot just to make sure these lights that I just turned on aren't impacting anything. Oh, well, it would help if I turn the flash off. So I just want to make sure my ambient light isn't creeping in there. So I got a little bit of specks in there, but nothing too crazy. The flash is gonna overpower that, so that's good. So let's just kind of play around with this position and try to get some good light. Just try different things just to see what we get. Getting my cardio in, walking back and forth. Yep, so that one isn't terrible. Let me just to try to kick in a little bit of light on the other side, just because it's getting a little dark on that side. Let's just bring that in. So we can bounce a little light over there. See how that looks. Yep, that's good. So that filled in. So if I zoom in to like this area here, you can just see where it just filled in that just a little bit. Nothing crazy. It normally is pretty subtle. But I like that. I'm gonna kick the flash up just a little, just to maybe bounce a little bit more light in there. So right now I'm at quarter. I'm gonna go to quarter plus a third. Because every time I use this diffuser, obviously I'm blocking a little bit of the light. So and when I'm placing this diffuser, you're not gonna be able to see it on the live, but I am kind of looking at where the shadow is being cast. So I do have a light on just to try to light so you guys can see. So I am kind of looking at that to see where the shadow is falling, because even though that's up, so this is going to cast a different shadow than the flash. The flash is in the same kind of general area, so I want to make sure that I'm getting adequate diffusion coverage. So that looks good to me. Now, a problem area is this part here, and there's just the way the packaging is. This part of the packaging is elevated, and there's obviously some creases in it. So I love the top part. The top part up here looks great. Definitely, I'm fine with the top. I would Photoshop this just to clean that up. But I'm fine with the top. But this part down here is definitely bothering me. So I wanna try to tackle that and see if I can smooth that out just a little bit to have that not. Because see, the problem with those creases, obviously when you have creases, you got, you know, valleys, mountains, valleys, so you're gonna have shadow that gets cast by it. Now, if I had this up the way that I normally would, like I said, for anybody that's coming in now, I normally would not shoot a product in a flat lay format like this when it's something that is this reflective and I want it to be evenly lit. Like if I'm doing a product photography shot where I'm getting more creative and I want shadow, I can work with this. For something where it's just going on a website and I kind of really just want even lighting, I typically would not do a flat lay style shot because I'm not able to get that even light that I really want to get. Ideally, I would have the light right here so that this product will be getting lit from the top down. That would take care of all of the creases in this. Because I would be top lighting it and it would essentially be flat lit, I wouldn't have these shadows in the creases, so I really wouldn't see them. So doing it flat like this creates these problems. So I really shouldn't have done it this way, but I didn't want to dig out my clips and stuff to be able to prop it up the way that I normally do. So I just thought I would try it just because I wanted to challenge myself and work through it. So because of that, I'm having to deal with these creases and that's creating the shadow and whatnot. So the only thing I can try to do is to just get the light as flat as possible on that spot. And I mean, I could use frequency separation to fix that, but you know, I don't really want to have to go to that level of detail. Yeah, you know, product photography, Josh, it is that, and it's not at the same time. Like product photography can be pretty simple, but it also can be very challenging and very labor intensive, like depending upon what you're trying to do. Like if it was just something simple, like, you know, let's say, you know, I'm just shooting this battery from, you know, one angle and I put it in a little product photography white box, put flash on, you know, both sides in the top and shoot it, that's easy. But you know, the more creative you try to do, or when you try to do something that's just not stale and boring, it definitely, there's a lot to it. And lighting is key, composition is key, the details is key. There's definitely, yeah, there's definitely a lot to it for sure. Yeah, this is definitely gonna bother me. But there's not a lot I can do. What I'm gonna try to do for that is we're gonna pull the flash off, and I'm gonna try to just top light that part just to see if I can get rid of that. Of course, that's way too hot. Where's my light meter? Let's drop that down to a 16th. So this is where it's nice just using a speed light and an umbrella as light, so it's easy to do this. I typically would not use an umbrella just because the light's a little bit more specular than I would like. Okay, so that is definitely not helping at all and making it somewhat worse. Yeah, this is just a very tricky packaging to work with, unfortunately. Yeah, and it probably would work a lot better if I had softer light. So I'm doing a lot of things that would make it harder for myself. You definitely can use an umbrella, but umbrellas are going to be more specular than a double diffuse softbox. I think this is like a 41-inch umbrella, so that's a decent size for this, but it's probably 2 feet away from the product. So a bigger modifier, a softer modifier would definitely make this a lot easier. So I think I'm gonna not harp on this too much because I think I could drive myself crazy here. So I'm gonna try to just get this as straight as possible. Okay, so that's not bad right there. That's not bad. Let me try to pull that back just a little bit so it's not super in the frame. So basically just what I'm trying to do is really get that light very soft on that part. So the closer I bring this diffusion to the product, what do we know about light? The bigger the light source relative to the subject, the softer the light. So the closer I can get this diffusion panel, the bigger this light source is going to be relative to the packaging, makes it softer. So let's get it right up on it. And again, in this case, all I need is just this bottom part right here, which it's not bad. It isn't great, but I think it's not bad. Yeah, Bree, I feel you. I typically don't like doing a lot of Photoshop work either, because if you're doing, so for this, I just have this one product. So that's easy. I just got to do this one product. But if you have multiple products, or you have a product and you're doing multiple angles and multiple setups, if you got to do Photoshop, if you got to do a composite for every one, that just adds to the level of work. So, I mean, you would either have to charge more, or you'd have to not do it this way to where you have to use Photoshop. So I typically do not like using a ton of Photoshop. I probably almost always will use Photoshop just to clean it up, but doing like a composite like this, nah, I typically don't like doing this. And it's going to be even more challenging because my camera keeps going between portrait and landscape orientation. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, I think I'm okay with that. It isn't perfect. It isn't perfect, but man, you can spend a lot of time just trying to get this to be like completely flawless. And if the product requires that, or if the commission that you have is paying good enough to do that, definitely do it. But a lot of times, depending upon the application of it, it isn't necessary unless you just kind of want to show what you can do. Yeah, I'm good with that. So I'm going to leave that at that. So that's good right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the pads in. I'm going to add these into the mix. Do I have enough space? Of course not. Yeah, I don't really need the packaging anymore. So we'll take the packaging out. Then we'll put the pads in. So I'm always trying to pay attention to that detail. Make sure the tags are all straight. Now since this is black, I'm not going to deal with reflections as bad. So I likely won't really need a diffuser. So something that I'll notice with this that I'm gonna have to fix in my placement. Now, I'm shooting this product flat, which is fine, but I don't want the picture, the finished picture, I don't necessarily want it to look like it was flat. Not that it's a problem, but I kind of want it to just look like it was standing straight up. So right now, and a part of that is because my camera is not completely level, but right now, because of how the camera is more tilted down, so you could tell that this was taken from the top, and I don't love that. So let's well, for starters, let's get this to be straight, because that'll help. That will help. Not bad. Okay, so what I want to focus on with these is I want to make sure that they're even. So I really want to pay attention to that. I want to keep those tags straight. So this is where it's going. It would be a lot easier if I wasn't live, because this is where I would make small adjustments, take a shot, look at it right here, make a small adjustment, take a shot. Like, you know, it would take me 30 seconds to get these perfect if I wasn't live. So just keep that in mind as I'm using all this time to try to get them perfect. Just know that it typically wouldn't take that long. But those are looking good. The light is good. The focus is not great though. Yep, that's a lot better. So that looks good. So you can see the big difference between, you know, having a black matte surface versus having a white plastic surface. You know, there's really not a lot of reflection that I'm having to deal with. I don't really need to diffuse anything. There's a little bit of a hot spot there, which, you know, if I wanted to be picky about, let's just see what it looks like if we throw a little diffusion in here. Maybe we can knock that out. We definitely lost some light. Yeah, you know, honestly, I really wouldn't worry too much about that. You know, sometimes when I'm doing products, I don't want to make them too flat, because I do want to make sure that you can see that there's depth to the product, right? So if you get rid of all of your shadow, then the image just looks completely flat. So, you know, I don't always want to remove all of the highlights. So it just kind of depends on the product that I'm shooting and the look that I'm going for with it. My camera should, yeah, it's actually going to be a pain stitching this together, because my camera keeps switching the orientation, which is not going to be fun. Yeah, I'm going to try to place these the opposite way. So instead of having it going up this way, I'm going to reverse it to see if it looks better that way. It still looks like I'm shooting it from the top down. So let's see how that looks. Not bad. sometimes it's kind of tough because not being able to see it in its full form, it's sometimes it's kind of hard to know how you're really going to feel about it. But what I can say is I like the detail. There's good detail in there. I like the highlight around the outer perimeter of it. The tags look good. Obviously, it's not straight. Let's just try to get that as straight as possible. So these are things that, you know, most clients, you know, they really wouldn't pay attention, wouldn't notice if it wasn't completely perfect. But I try to just get it as good as I possibly can just for myself. Now, if I wasn't going live, I'd be having my tape measure out. I'd be measuring these to make sure that they were all perfectly straight. But I'm not going to do that. But it's typically what I would do. Yep, so I like that. That looks good. I don't think I have enough white surface to just lay them flat. Let's see if I can make that work. Yeah, that isn't really leaving me a lot of room to be able to cut that out. So it'd be a little dangerous doing it this way, but I'm gonna do it this. I'm gonna take the shot anyway, just because I can. But what I also could do is just go diagonal, because I'm just gonna chop this out and make it composite it all together anyway. So this is obviously gonna change the light pattern on it though, which you do have to be careful about that, because if I'm gonna, yeah, that changes my shadows as well. So if I'm going to composite this in, I don't want to have different products at different angles and have different lighting patterns and different shadows, because then when I go to composite that in, it's not going to match up, and then that's just going to be more work to try to get those shadows where they need to be. And I'm not that good at Photoshop, so I definitely do better trying to get things right in camera than relying on Photoshop, because I am good enough to be dangerous, but far from great at Photoshop. So I have to just rely on being able to get it right on location versus relying on Photoshop. Yeah, that doesn't work too well. I really need a bigger surface. Which is fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. I can work with it the other way. It's not too bad. Now I do want to get it on this other side, because there's two sides. So I like this side because it has the tag, obviously. But I do want to get the other side as well, just in case if I want to use that for something. I don't think I will, because this side is a little bit more erratic. But just in case, I always like to take more shots than I think I'm going to need, and if I don't use them, no problem. But if I need them, I have them. So then once I get these, I want to swap out the lens. So right now I'm using my 40 mil pancake, which I typically don't use the 40 because it can cause some distortion in the product. So usually I would use either my 70 to 200 or I would use my 85, and I would have this camera higher. I use the 40 just so that way it will be in frame for this live. But typically I would use either my 70 to 200 or an 85 mil or my 100 mil, just so that way I get a little bit better compression, because I don't want to distort the product. Now for this, not a huge deal, and I'm still somewhat far from the product to where it's not a huge deal, but 40 and 35, you can get away with it, but you definitely can have some distortion of the product. So depending upon what you're shooting, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And if you do, I mean, obviously if you shoot like towards the center of the frame, no worries. But I typically would use an 85. Where's my flash? Don't tell me my battery's died. Probably. Nope. Yep. Those batteries died. Okay, so that's good right there. So obviously having now what I'm going to do is well, first thing I'm going to do is swap out these batteries so I could keep shooting. Yeah, I typically would have my music going, have a candle lit, so it's smelling all good. But I can't do that when I'm on YouTube, so this is it normally is a lot. I'll be in my zone, be vibing out usually. And like I said, I mean, it typically goes significantly faster than this as well. Like it's harder when I have to keep walking back to the laptop. And the way that I set it up, the product, it normally will go a lot faster than this. Okay, so now, since you know what, actually, before I move those out, let me do one like this where I alternate. So let's flip that around. Actually, let's just do, well, no, we'll try it. We'll do a couple different things. So let's do this one first where I have both sides. Now, once I have these done, I'm actually going to swap out the lens and put the macro lens on so that I can get a close-up of the detail of the pads. So let's just get some, just get some variations. Yep, detail is good. Getting a little hot spot on that I don't love, but no, I don't really like the flip flop of it. So okay. So now what I'm going to do is take these out, take that shot. So that essentially gives me this surface here. Now I could just, because it's white, I could just cut the stuff out and put it on just a white layer in Photoshop. Definitely could do that. The reason why I'm doing this is because since I'm using this, there's a little bit of texture in this, and it's likely not pure white, which if I want to make it pure white, obviously I can do that. But because there's texture on this, I'm taking a picture of this so I can make that be my canvas. So instead of it just being just a white blank layer, I'm going to use this as my canvas. And then when I cut out those individual components, I have the same color and the same texture in my canvas as how I took those pictures. So that just helps it blend better. Because if I did white, then I would potentially have to cut out each piece, but I'd have to cut out the shadow as well, feather it. That's a lot more work, so I try to not make it that difficult. So this should alleviate that problem. So now I can just roughly cut out each piece, put it in, and it'll be good to go. In theory. It's always in theory. Yeah, Chuck, I'll definitely, and this is too hot, so let's turn that flash down. Let's try it at 8 power and 16 power. Yeah, I'll definitely add a little bit of extra detail to the pads just to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the shadows. So that's a good one there. So basically, when I cut these in, I will edit the individual pictures first. So I'll get the pictures to be how they need to be. I'll definitely pay attention to the white in each picture to make sure that it's the same luminosity, basically. So then that way, when I cut it out, I can just put it on there and I'll feather off the edges and it should blend very nicely. So I'm gonna let me go and switch to my macro so I can get some detail shots of the pads. You know what, M. Jones? I agree 100%. That is one of the fun things. I mean, it could be a frustrating piece about product photography as well. That's one of the fun things about product photography is that you're constantly looking at it, figuring out what you want to change, making a small tweak, looking at it, and you're getting it to be like perfect, like right where you want it to be. And it is a lot of fun. But like I said, I mean, it sometimes can be a serious pain as well. So we're going to switch over to the macro, and so that way we can get some detail shots here. Man, is my battery almost dead already? So let's get that in position. Focus, nice, that looks good. So it's actually, man, so tight in here with all this stuff in here. So I just need to raise this up just a little bit. So the reason why I'm doing the macro is because since these pads specifically have two sides, I want to showcase that in the image so that people know that there's two sides. Because I don't think it says it on the packaging. So it's just nice to have that in your product shot. Just so people know. Okay, so focus is good. I'm gonna keep it at 5.6, and we're gonna see if that's gonna be enough detail. So of course, when you're going with macro, sometimes you gotta be up there. So number one, we need more light, and I don't know if that, I might have to manually focus this because that does not, oh yeah, I'm down, yeah. That doesn't look crazy in focus, but let's see. Okay. Yeah, no, that works. That works. But I mean, as you can see though, well, you might not be able to see it in the live, but just to, to really put it into perspective with, a macro. So I'm at 5.6. That was more than enough depth of field for the main thing, but I'm already getting a little soft on the edge of this pad, and it's not that thick. But I'm okay with that because I don't care about the edges. I really just want to show this detail here in the pad, which that looks pretty good, but I think I'm going to try to manually focus it anyway, because I think with it being black and not having a lot of contrast, I don't think the autofocus nailed that. So let me manually focus here. All right, so first, let's take it out of, so let's go to single shot, zoom in, take that down. Let's try to get that. It's a little bit tough. Yeah, I think where it got it is pretty good. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. Kind of hard to tell sometimes, but I think for what I'm trying to do, it works. Okay. What up, SJ? And that's right, Mid. No pain, no gain, man. You gotta get through it. So yep, that looks good. So let's flip it over, get the other side. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Yeah, that works as well. So actually I'm going to switch it up. So what I'm going to do with this, because the whole point of me doing this shot is to show the texture, this is a time where you want shadow, right? So although this light that I have right here is not completely overhead, it is a little bit more overhead than it is towards the side. So what I'm actually going to do is change this light and put it more on the side, so that way I get more shadow, so it really brings out the detail in this pad. Which means, let's take this off. Take off my boom arm. This on the Z stand. And let's take that shot and let's see how that looks. Let's try to see. So let's rotate that around, get it a little bit closer, and bring it down just a notch. There's not a whole lot of texture to be seen on this side of the pad, and I don't know how well you could see it in the live, but you really can just kind of see those little small loops of texture there, and that's really what I'm trying to highlight. And I think when I edit this, if I increase that texture a little bit, then it'll really pop out that texture and you can really see those individual loops. And because I'm a perfectionist, like these little white specks, I will definitely get rid of those in post. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do that like if I had volume of product photography, because that would just be a lot of work. And it's not necessarily necessary, but because the way that I'm going to add this to the image, it is going to be a close-up like this, I do want to clean that up. So, yep, that looks good. So let's flip it back over. We'll do another one, and I'll kind of rough it up a little bit just to kind of get some detail. We'll take that shot. And if we kind of bring up the texture there as well, you don't want to go too crazy on any clarity or anything, but that's not bad. But actually, so let me take another one, and then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to move the camera, and instead of doing a top down, I'm going to move the camera down to kind of get more of the same way that I'm positioning the light and having the light skim across. I'm gonna have the camera kind of do the same thing. So I'm gonna rough that up a little bit just to try to really showcase that texture. Yeah, so that's definitely not bad, but now I want to turn this around so that way I have this backdrop here. And then what I want to do is we're going to bring the camera make sure that I don't because I'm plugged in over there. Like that, and like that. See if this will go low enough. This is probably not gonna go as low as I need it to go like this. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to hand hold this joint. because that particular stand, this isn't a tripod, so that particular stand doesn't go low enough. So basically I'm just going to try to come at it this way and just get to see if I can just get a better shot of that detail. I do not think my flash fired there, did it? Why is my flash not firing? Oh, maybe it is. Maybe I'm just blind. Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, so let's look at that. Okay, so first thing we can see is that f5.6 is not clearly enough when shooting it at that perspective. So, it's going to be a little tough trying to do this handheld, but because the name of the game today is make it hard. Let's see what we can do. So let's, I'm going to go up to F11. I'm going to drop down. So F11, and then I'm gonna put this flash on full power. Actually, let me back it up a little bit so that it's more in the light. And let's see what we can get. Yes, okay. Let's try a couple different things. Right there. Come up. Man, that is in there. That is in there. So let's see what we have. So at the moment, not enough light is getting in there, and it also, yeah, man, I would likely have to focus stack to be able to really do it this way. Because even at F11, I mean, there's a very small line of what is in focus. And that's the thing about macro, especially when you're trying to do something bigger like this. Yeah, it's a challenge. Let's, since I'm already at F11, I'm gonna bump the ISO up to 400. I'm gonna take it up a couple stops. And because this item has texture anyway, I wouldn't mind a little grain. The 5D4 would handle 400, no problem, but I wouldn't mind a little grain anyway, since there's texture and I'm really trying to showcase that texture. A little bit of noise would actually help the cause. So let's try that, see how that looks. Okay, so that's a lot better. Yeah, it was just underexposed actually. So that looks a lot better. So now we're really starting to get that detail there, which is nice. Nice fall off right there. So I like how much is in focus. So we got a little bit of fall off. Here's kind of my focal point. So a good amount there, and then a nice fall off leading back that way, which is nice. I like that. Actually, let me see what's going on. F22. Nah, because F22, you start getting into diffraction. You'd be well into diffraction at that point. I literally would only use F22 if I needed the depth and I wasn't trying to focus stack, but I typically would not use F22 when doing macro. So let's do that just to get the whole pad. Let's do just some different height levels just to kind of play around. So let's look at those. Yeah, it's good. Basically, I'm just trying to get a shot just to show the detail, and I'm not even using the whole frame. I really just want a piece of it just to be able to illustrate that detail. So this is more than enough for what I would need. Now, the part where I typically wouldn't do it this way, and so how I want to, okay, so a couple things. Why I typically wouldn't do this handheld is because I have two sides that I need to do, and I need to make sure that my angle is exactly the same for both. So that's where it would make more sense to use a tripod. But since I have two of them, well, I have three of them, but since I have multiple, I want to shoot them both at the same time, and that'll fix that problem. And then I can just use a piece from each one. So let's see if I can get both of those framed though, using this 100. Yeah, I'm a little further back, so I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Let's try it and see. Yeah, I mean it works, but I've got more light fall off on this one. I don't like that. So let's try to, where is, oh, so you guys are on my tripod. I should not be lazy and get a tripod, but I'm gonna do this and try to just I'm gonna try to just get the same angle. We'll see. So that should do the trick. So that looks good. That one's about the same. That one looks good. So, like I said, I only need, like a sliver of it, just to be able to show that texture. So, yeah, I really could use more depth of field in it, but it's not that big of a deal. So I think I'm okay with that. Those are about the same angle. Not perfect. Not perfect, but decent. Yes, so that is basically a wrap on the photo part of it. So now, and I won't do it in the live, I'm going to actually end the live. But now I'll take it all into Photoshop and composite it all together. So I will post it. Well, maybe I'll post it on my IG after I send it to the client, maybe. Just so you guys can see what the finished product looks like. Definitely got to show you the finished product somehow. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I do. I don't even know if you can see me. That's typically how I would work through product photography. So again, some things that I would normally do different. I wouldn't typically do a flat lay style for something like this. I do flat sometimes depending upon the product, but usually when I'm doing product stuff, I want it to be a little bit more creative. I want some shadow in there, so I typically won't flat lay it like this. And so, you know, when you flat lay it, your lighting, if you want flat lighting, it's just a little bit more challenging when you flat lay it. So I typically would have it standing up. I typically would use a softbox and not an umbrella. You most certainly can use an umbrella. They're just a little bit more specular. They're not as soft because it's single diffuse. I could have put a dome diffuser on there. That would have helped, but I didn't think about that till right now. So I typically would use a softbox, a pretty big one. I would normally use like a 48-inch Octa box. Sometimes I would use a 60-inch, just depending upon how soft I want the shadow transition to be, or sometimes I'll use a smaller modifier. Sometimes I use a reflector and hard light if I want some nice harsh shadow. So it just depends on the look that I'm going for, but this is typically how I walk through it. It's a lot faster when I do it usually because I'm not having to entertain the live and walk back to my computer over there. I just kind of have everything set up right where I'm at. I use my remote so I can take a shot, make an adjustment, take a shot. So I can get these shots really fast when it's just me and I have my music going and all that, get in the zone, can get them really fast. So for me, when it comes to the product stuff, I really try to understand what the client is looking for. So number one, I need to know what do they plan to use the images for. That's number one. You know, are they for a website? Are they for social media? Are they for marketing material? I need to know where they're going first because that's going to dictate a lot of how I'm going to compose it and light it depending upon what they need it for. This here was just for a website, just a product image. So it didn't need to be anything super creative or moody because it's just meant to showcase the product. So this is a really easy one, but you have to know that, right? So, and then, you know, once I know the use, then it's okay, what are you looking to achieve from the image? Do you want to just showcase the product? Do you want to make the product look bold? Do you want to make the product look refreshing? You know, what do you want your viewer to get from seeing the photo? That's important as well because typically if I'm doing product stuff, you know, I'm going to have a lot of creative control over how I'm doing things, and to make sure that the client is happy, I need to understand what they're using, where they're using it, and what they're wanting to get from the images. So, you know, once you know those two things and you kind of get an idea of what they like, what they don't, color palettes, you know, all of those things, you take all of that into account when you're doing your setup. And if you're putting in props and different things like that, you want to make sure that it's going to be cohesive for wherever that image is going. So if it's going on their website, you got to go to their website, do your homework, and see the flow of their website, the colors, the font, the mood, the feel. You want your images to match that. Because if you deliver stuff and it doesn't fit and it doesn't jive, they may still be happy with the images, but it's not going to be cohesive wherever they're going to put it. And if it's not cohesive, it sticks out. And that's just not what you want. So you really have to do homework. Product photography is not just about doing, you know, however you want to do it. You really have to look at what the client already has and make sure that your images that you're giving them fit seamless. Because for the most part, unless it's a new company, they're just getting into it, they're likely already going to have images already. So you want to just make sure that yours kind of mesh. Even if they're technically better, that's fine, but I mean, you just want to make sure that like the look and feel meshes with what they already have. So that's what I do for product photography stuff. I do enjoy doing it because it's easy. I just get to kind of do it myself. Let's see. Is that a Brillo pad? No, it's a makeup remover pad. A Brillo pad. That's funny. I should do a Brillo pad. Man, bro, you ain't lying about them flight prices, man. I was trying to fly home next month, and man, even Spirit, which I don't fly Spirit, but even Spirit flight was like $500 for a Spirit flight. So you already know Southwest was busting heads. So yeah, man, flight prices, and I guess they're supposed to be going up even more because they're saying that there is a severe pilot shortage, and because of that, they're having to cut a lot of flights, and so the flights that they do have whatever are going to be expensive. So yeah, definitely is wild. Yeah, so that's that, man. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to sign off so I can go put these things in the computer and get this image done. So I appreciate you tuning in. I will holla at y'all on the flip side.